excited to be with you all today. Um, I'm going to allow them to simply formally introduce themselves, and then I will provide some opportunity for a facilitated conversation, and then we'll wrap up and leave about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A. So if that sounds all right with everybody, go ahead and throw a yes in the chat, a thumbs up through a reaction, or whatever you want to do. And we are going to be good to go. So Brandon, if you want to kick us off, and then we'll go down the line.
Great. Thank you so much, Jarvis. Thank you, SUNY Cortland, for having me as one of the panelists. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Manning. He, him pronouns. I am from Brooklyn, New York, but I currently live in Binghamton, New York, where I work, Brooklyn. But I currently work at SUNY Broome Community College, where I'm the Student Rights and Responsibilities Coordinator, as well as the one of the co-advisors for our Men of Excellence programs on the campus. I think we're supposed to go over education as well. Do we want that, Jarvis, or keep it moving?
Nah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, cool. So I'm a SUNY boy through the SUNY system. So my bachelor's is in music performance from SUNY Potsdam, and I am in my last semester. Thank you, Laude, not cum laude, but thank you, Laude, from in Student Affairs Administration from Binghamton University.
Sweet, thank you, Brandon. Bryce is next up on my screen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bryce Wooden. I work at SUNY Oneonta as an EOP advisor, and I'm also Brothers for Empowerment. I'm advisor for our group at SUNY Oneonta. I actually grew up in Oneonta, New York, and I am alumni of SUNY Brockport and their Men of Color Brockport group as well. So I'm just happy to be here at this conference and learned a lot. So I'm excited to chat with everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryce. I got Eric next up on my screen.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Banks. Proud Red Dragon from SUNY Cortland, graduate of 2013, undergrad in PE, physical education, and my master's is 2016. My classmate, Lima Stafford, we were classmates in 2016 where I graduated with a master's in health education. I now work at my high school, Westbury High School in Long Island. So that's a great opportunity for me to give back to my community. I'm so grateful to be here with all you wonderful and awesome sowers. I call you all sowers. You sowing seeds into so many lives. And I am married to the beautiful Kalia Banks, who is a SUNY admissions officer at SUNY Cortland. And I'm so excited that we are so excited to be here and to be a part of this great experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And let's see, I see Tim next on my screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Thompson. My pronouns are he, his. I'm from the Bronx. I see you, Mo. We here. I currently work at Tompkins Cortland Community College as the coordinator of diversity education and support services. I'm in my last semester of grad school at Cornell University, pursuing my master's in public administration. And I'm very proud to be on SUNY Cortland's alumni board. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And last, certainly not least, Mark Sanders.
What's going on, everyone? I'm just excited to be here again. I was here at the first conference and just so excited to be here on the panel this year around. I'm just, really happy that we're able to continue to make space for young men across SUNY and abroad, now that we're virtual, to tune in and just connect with one another. My name is Mark Sanders. I am Assistant Director for Enrollment Management and also Director for NY Gear Up Year 7 for SUNY Administration. I am a proud EOP grad of SUNY Plattsburgh, class of 2014. And anybody from the New York City area, especially from Brooklyn, stand up.
Thank y'all, brothers. As you can see and hear, a phenomenal group of young men of color professionals. I can give just a little brief introduction to me, just simply because I wasn't able to join for my remarks earlier. So my name is Jarvis again, pronouns he and him. Currently serve at Cornell University. Previously worked across SUNY Delhi, SUNY Broome Community College, and at both places had the pleasure of working with great colleagues to create a Men of Color program. So super thankful to be here on the third annual Men of Color Student Leadership Summit. Just congratulations to SUNY Cortland for being able to continue to do this. It's one thing to have the first annual, but to keep on being able to do this is phenomenal. President Bitterbaum, thank you for being here. Lima, Lorraine, Maxwell, everybody that's a part of this great experience. Thank you so much for providing this. My first question for our panelists is centering the moment and the feelings that we're in right now. Self-care, self-worth, self-love. So how are you all feeling at this moment in time, this year, last year, as we think about having this panel about self-worth and self-care? How are y'all feeling right now?
If I could just go first, I just want to kind of requote from Brian Heat, and he says, we're never where we were supposed to, we're never not where we were supposed to be. And I think that, just going into your question, coming from last year to this year, it really just kind of like was a really quick culmination of like why I'm here, why I'm present right now. But to answer your question, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling full. Just listening and tuning in, and really just seeing and receiving all that's been poured out for today's conference.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Anybody else want to answer that question?
I'll jump right in.
Cool.
So I want to preface what I'm saying with I'm very honest, as these conversations are imperative to us moving forward. So I'm flat out struggling. I'm wrapping up my last semester as a full-time grad student while taking on a full-time workload at TC3. Something's wrong with me. It's one thing to try to manage both loads, but you can't just manage the loads. There's an expectation that you perform well in all areas. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So the pressure of managing both loads is obviously exacerbated by the pandemic. So my mother, my sister, my grandparents all live in New York City. They're in the Bronx. They all have asthma, and none of them have been vaccinated. So between school, work, and worrying about my family, it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
Hey, I'm going off script. Y'all mind if I go off script really quick? Cool.
Absolutely. Go ahead, bro.
All right. So why, as men of color, as people of color, and yes, appreciate the honesty, Tim. You're everybody right now. We're modeling vulnerability. What's the feeling of do we feel like we have to take on so much? Like why do we maybe feel that we might have to just do so much? I was listening to Brother Thompson, full-time student, full-time and professional. How? Right? And I know you're killing it. I know you're doing it well. But I want to unpack that a little bit right now, because I think that's going to lead this conversation, particularly when we think about this past year and this year. It just felt like we had to still do so much.
I think that's a tough one. That's a tough one to answer. I know when I first got hired, it's like, well, Tim's the new young guy on the block, so it's like you have to do well. Yeah. And so if I knew the program I was looking at was full time, but there was pressure, Tim, you have to go get your master's because you're faculty at this school, you need a master's degree. So I knew I wanted the MPA. But then there's a pressure like, Tim, we also need you here to do well. So it's like, well, there's so much pressure on me, like I said, to do well, but it's like you need to go back to school. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna make this work. So I'm gonna do something crazy and take on a full-time load in both areas. But it's that expectation that you always have to be well. And that's only made worse by the pressure of coming from where I come from. I come from the Bronx, and like I often say, I don't see much representation in the areas that I'm looking at least from the Bronx. And so it's like, well, I have to represent my borough. I have to. And so it's a very loaded question because it requires a lot. It's tough because there's so many external pressures, And I didn't even mention the internal pressures, but I don't want to make this about me because we got other panelists that got a ton to share. So that's a tough one to answer.
Yeah, and that wasn't meant to be directed at you. So sorry if that landed on you that way. But it just resonated. It hit me, and I think that's where I'm at right now. Just thinking about why do I need to feel that I got to do so much. So thank you for letting me go off script, y'all. But I am a facilitator, so I kind of control this space. So that's pretty cool. But anybody else want to answer that question? Just how you feeling right now?
Yeah, Jarvis, I'll piggyback because the first thing that I wrote down actually from this is from what Brother Thompson was saying. I wrote down perform well. So I'm glad that you went off script because it's like, why, right? So part of it goes into that ode adage that all of us who are of color, no matter what your gender is, right? We've all heard it before. We have to work twice as hard to be just as good. Or for those of you who like sports, right? Particularly baseball, right? We have to hit a home run every single time we're up rather than a base run, right? In order for us to actually matter. And so I think that it is the societal expectations. And then, of course, familial expectations, right? You know, are we first gen? Are we the first to achieve more academically or professionally, right? Of course, if we're from I'd say if we're from, regardless of what borough we're from, we got to rep the borough, right? But regardless of where you're from, that makes sense as well, right? But, you know, I think that there's just a lot of expectations that just fuel us to always want to do more, right? And then with doing more, and I know that we'll get into this later on with the questions, we really have to think about, well, am I really balancing that self-care? And then from everything that I'm doing, what am I learning, not just to help myself, but to help my communities?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If I could just chime in, that was awesome, Brandon. I'm also with Tim. At first, things got a little shaky, being in a house all day and try not to go on the I used to live in Brooklyn, but now we transferred, we moved to Long Island, but things were rough because you were in the house all day. And my wife and I, Kalia, we tried to see things from an optimistic standpoint. And one thing that we've said to each other was, what are the opportunities within the tragedy? So what that means is just getting closer with my wife, who I see every day. Is it reaching out to those who I haven't probably never seen, and probably I like their posts on social media, right? So we kind of shifted from, all right, this sucks, to what are the opportunities that are being presented? And the more we focused on that in this season, to be honest, things begin to unroll, things begin to grow. My marriage got stronger, my relationship with parents and relatives, whoever. Then I got a job, and then I got all these students, high school students, who are emotionally gone, socially gone. So I said to myself, there's a need. Brian Heater, he spoke about it. If there's a need and I got hired for a need, it's time to shine, right? So I stepped into the place. I said, how can I be myself and shine bright where there's darkness, where there's uncertain times? So I actually want to encourage all of you, right? There's always an opportunity to be you. There's always an opportunity to shine. And if I could just use my experience, things were uncertain. I'm not going to lie. Things were, I don't know, moments. I woke up sometimes like, I believe in, and I have a faith, right? I believe in the higher being. So I would wake up and I say, how am I going to make it today? And one thing I spoke about, one thing that reminded me is, I know who I serve. And it was these kids that I wake up every day. How can I be the best me for them? And that just kept me going. And that's what's been keeping me in this season, is my students and my wife and my family.
Gotcha. Appreciate you. Any of the other panelists want to add anything? How you feeling right now? You don't have to. That's just me inviting you in.
Oh, Jarvis, I just wanted to chime in off of Eric and Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, and Brandon, right now, I mean, we're in a pandemic. And I know for myself, you know, you have a pandemic and, you know, the events of George Floyd and so many events that, you know, for my students and, you know, especially I want to be strong and have that foundation to help them be better. But there was times where that was difficult, and I really had to identify my wellness techniques because, you know, I just couldn't, you know, understand what was going on in our world and frustrations. And sometimes I had to identify, like what Tim said earlier, my balance. You know, right now I'm on 2 police board reform boards in Oneonta for the county and the city, trying to, improve my community and help in any way that I can. Serve my students in the EOP program and Brothers for Empowerment. I'm getting married in August, all these things, right? I had to kind of sit back and realize, right, okay, this is my limit. I do, want to follow my passions and change the world, but I do need to make time in the morning, to do a workout, on the bike or weightlifting or something, listen to music. That can be hard for, all of us in the chat. So many great, professionals and students. We're all busy. We're passionate about a lot of things. So I think that's the big thing is, kind of identifying off of what Juan said and Brian, of kind of identifying what do you love when it comes to wellness and figuring that out with all of this stuff going on at the same time. So I'm definitely with you, Jarvis. It is talk about a battle. It's one of those things I think we're all trying to figure out and struggling with.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, or tell us rather, a little bit about y'all's self-care journey. Think about holding the weight of everything that we are committed to, all of the weight of the world on our shoulders at sometimes. Tell us about your self-care journey, and do you recall a specific time in your life that made you begin to center your self-care?
I guess I'm gonna jump in, fellas. I had I'm gonna just call it burnout, right? Before COVID, I was working at an elementary school in Brooklyn, PS 398, woo woo, Crown Heights area. I was doing so much, and that comes with if you're a teacher and you're on this call, you're a teacher, you're a father, you're a custodian after school, you're a dean. I was everything and to everyone, right? And then I would go home and then be everything for everyone. So burnout hit hard, 2019 to 2020 before the pandemic, and I said to myself, as you all are saying, how can I revive, right? How can I rejuvenate this person, right? I know I'm giving and giving and giving, and then I can't give to my wife. I can't give to my family and friends. So one thing, I said it before, it was an opportunity. So what did I do? I created a teacher burnout system, right? And within my own troubles, as Brian, he said, I use my own adversity and I kind of used it to benefit other people. So I created a teacher burnout system for my school, giving them strategies. I was the PE health teacher, giving them strategies of how to navigate burnout. Because I went through it and I conquered it, how can I shed that same light to my own staff? So again, using your own tragedies and mishaps and shortcomings. And I used it, I ran with it, I was shining my light, and people gravitated to it because they saw the authentic side of myself. I was like, I was burnt out. I was doing all this stuff. I was trying to work out, trying to eat healthy. None of that was happening. And I'm the PE teacher in the building, right? So being real and being authentic with my staff, I used what I went through, like I said, and things worked out. I created this program and it's still running for them. I left their school, but they're still running with the program and I love it. So shine your light. If I leave everybody with one thing today, shine within darkness, right? Even in the midst of pandemic, use everything as an opportunity for you to shine. Use your gifts, talents, and abilities. Even if you're burnt out like I was in 2019, that's your opportunity to be who you are.
Beautiful. Any other panelists want to chime in?
So I can chime in with a quick anecdote. Something that I remind myself more often now is this mantra that I learned in undergrad, which is hear blessings dropping their blossoms around you, right? And this is something that I've only recently started to share with people because I would keep it to myself because I was like, people don't really want to hear that. But, take it if it helps you, right? So experienced true burnout twice. Once undergrad, again, music performance major. one semester, 21 credits. My Wednesdays, I'll never forget, 8 a.m. through 7:20 p.m. No breaks. That's not an exaggeration at all. Plus a minimum of 6 hours a day in the practice room, right? So that semester, also on 2 e-boards, in charge of the largest student budget on campus, also being an RA and other stuff. It was just like, what am I doing? Again, going back to that idea of performing well, right? And I just crashed. I will never forget that semester. Took a big academic plunge. But again, back to what I said at the beginning, didn't graduate cum laude, but thank you, laude. Anyway, so one thing that I kept reminding myself was, you know what? Take a minute, step back. What do you, like, yes, right now you're overwhelmed, but hear those blessings around you. You know what? You're still in good health. You know what? You have your family, right? Around this time, my father had passed away, and it was just like, you know, that's tough. But in tragedies comes opportunity, right? That's a chance for me to see my family again that I haven't seen in years. Look at all these blessings during this pandemic, right? Things we were all in this storm together, right? Different boats, but we're all in this storm together, and we all experienced it differently. But regardless, it was look at these blessings right now. You know, during this pandemic, I was able to drop 30 pounds. Right? I'm able to reconnect with my family more via Zoom. I'm able to connect with my church, my home church via Zoom and whatnot. There are small little blessings that if you just sit still and whether it's in the silence and hear those blessings dropping around you, or if it's, you know, I'm a proud brother of Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. If it's leaning on the shield, if it's talking to my brothers, right? Like, wow, thank you for sharing your experience with me because that has helped me grow. Or if it's not talking shop, thank you for this funny anecdote. So all of that to say, you know, prioritizing hearing your blessings. He spoke earlier about gratitude. Starts off his day every day with prayer and gratitude, right? Thank you for the blessings. Thank you for sharing this thought with me, whoever it is, right? So those are some ways that I've started prioritizing self-care, especially when there's a little bit of burnout.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? When did you
I could
start?
jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's always tough to follow Brandon. He's pretty good. My moment came after my first semester in grad school. And so I had got a C in the class, so that meant I had to retake it. Wasn't performing well, so I was missing deadlines and meetings because I'm writing papers. And even personal commitments took a hit because I just didn't have the capacity. And I also had just learned my father passed, and so that was after my first semester. But that wasn't the defining moment. The moment came when I looked around me, and it was like no one's there. It felt like no one was there. It felt like, hey, it was like folks were saying, hey, Tim, what can you do for me? We need this from you. And at that moment, I realized an external support system, i.e. your friends and family, are a necessity. But it's a must to have an internal system in place for when it's just you. You'd be amazed to see how healthy it is to learn how to say no. So it was that moment where I learned that I had to figure something out with regards to centering myself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna I mean, just feeling it. Eric threw it in the chat. So for us, I think we can lean on one another. My father died back in 2015, so I that's something we can lean on each other off script here. But just throwing that out there to say it out loud. So I'm gonna hold myself accountable to connect with y'all about that if you want.
Yeah, Jarvis, I just want to just throw it in there. Like, that was my light. That was the bulb. If any of you guys can attest to this, like, if anything in life, and you watch cartoons, like you get that bulb. It wasn't a negative situation. That's why I keep trying to, like, who I am and how I speak and how my perspective is, and never see things as they are. I saw it as an opportunity. My dad, we talk about legacy, leaving. He didn't leave with everything with him in the grave. And that's why, as men, as we're here, I think Juan said it, like, legacy is now. These are opportunities. Before we leave this earth, tomorrow's not promised. we got to take advantage of these moments, the now, right? Because who knows? So that was a light bulb, and taking on the light that he bared, and the light that he was shining. I took all the things and used it as a baton that I will pass, one day to my son, my daughters, or whoever I'm connected to. So even in this moment, bringing up dads and bringing up fathers who are not there, either physically or either just emotionally, whatever it is, I pray, and I just want to encourage everybody to don't see things. I'm a perspective person. And I think perspective, I teach my younger group at church that if you don't like something, you change it. If you can't change it, change how you see it. I preach that to my students, to my younger groups. Perspective changes your approach. Your approach changes the outcome, right? So it's a bam, bam, bam moment, but it all starts from your perspective, your viewpoint. What lens will you look at your tragedies? What lens will you look at failures, mistakes, something that you feel guilty about, right? Just change how you see it. And once you change the perspective about it, then your approach, it will be different. Then your approach will lead to a specific outcome. So I just want to throw that in there real quick. I don't mean to breathe like Brian Heat real quick, but I just want to throw it in there. Write it down, do whatever you got to do. But seriously, perspective is key when you deal with tragedies.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say write it down.
If I could just add one thing there, and my condolences, and my thoughts are with the brothers here that experienced loss. I'd be remiss to say that I haven't experienced loss as well. And the advice that I would give, I gave to myself, and I would give to you, as everyone who's on here who is dealing with self-care, or trying to structure or restructure that from last year, is to give yourself grace. As Eric just said, it starts with the mindset, but on the way, the journey is not going to be smooth. It's not going to be, linear, right? It's going to be up and down, hills and valleys, and give yourself grace. The fact that, and just lead the day with gratitude. Be thankful for the things that you have, and the things that, and the people that surround you. And I think that, just with that piece there, you can practice self-care just a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jarvis, you mind if I just
go ahead.
One more comment to what Mark was saying, and I wrote this down as Eric was talking as well, talking about making sure that your light shines, right? And again, tying into what Tim was saying as well in terms of the power of no, really thinking about who you're surrounding yourself with, right? So Rumi has this quote, set your life on fire and seek those who fan your flame, right? So really, like, if you were doing something that you were terrified about, or if you were doing something that is just different, make sure that you have that external support system, right? Of course, internal as well, but that external that's there to support you, that's there to fan your flame and keep it going. Because without it, the flame will dissipate, right? So, as Eric was saying, right, make sure that light shines. So thanks for letting me piggyback off of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for dropping the jewel. I'm going to take a step back and think about the theme of this conference. Self-worth, self-value, and self-care. So when we think about that phrase, how do y'all make sense of that phrase in the context of something that y'all are portraying so beautifully right now? And that's kind of the strength of vulnerability. Thinking about manhood and masculinity and being a man of color. So how are y'all thinking about that phrase of self-worth, self-value, and self-care?
May I say something on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had to pop back in. Sorry, I'm a little late. I had to take care of some things with this. I love this conversation. And Jarvis, when I look at, I always love defining things, right? So as a man, as a brown man, as a black man, as just a man in general, is what's your definition of a man? And that's it's very important to establish your definition of a man, and being either being a man that hurts or heals, right? Are you nurturing? Is that part of that identity? Is that a part of that definition with that? And are you able to do that for yourself? Are you able to create space for yourself and create space for others in a nurturing way? Because there's going to be some things that happen in all our lives as men. I'm just talking to the men in particular, but in all our lives as humans as well. But as men, there's going to be some things that's going to challenge your definition of a man, right? And you don't even know that what your definition of a man is. So when something happens in the external world and you feel like less of a man, you have to ask yourself, wait, what is a man then? Right? Because if I feel like less than a man, if I never define that, then I'm taking this other definition that's obscure. It's very like nebulous, right? And it can really, really like hurt you. It can really take your spirit because you never got clear, and no one ever taught us how to get clear on what a man is or how to go about bringing that into the world, right? And my father was not in my life. You know, in the first conversation I had with my father, it was understanding like, hey, like, I want to know why you weren't there for me and my sister, right? Not on an animosity kind of thing, but just to understand. I don't know what, you know, some things might have happened to him and my mother. Don't know. But there's going to be some people and some situations where it's not reciprocated, right? And he wasn't ready for that conversation, even though he was a grown ass man. He wasn't ready to step into that conversation, and I had to let go of that and have that forgiveness, right? So I forgave him with all that. I had to do that first, and because I didn't want to have this animosity over me, right? I was running from something. I didn't want to be like him, but I never ever thought about, okay, what do I want to be like then, right? So if I focus on what I don't want to be like, that's always going to happen. I'm running away from something as opposed to running towards something. And the minute you start creating and that picture in terms of what do I want to go towards, right? Eric was talking about perspective. That's a beautiful and powerful thing. What do I want to go towards now? Like, I am a creator. I get to create this thing. No one taught me. Cool. I got a blank canvas. I could take something from this dope king I see over here and here. I like this and I like this, and I put it into my world. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to create. This is what I want to be. And I think that's part of that definition as a man, and it goes into self-care, self-worth, because it falls into that. With that.
Awesome, beautiful,
Absolutely.
I will. Or Mark, you want to go?
Now, go ahead, Eric.
I just want to speak on the self-worth or value with three small points that I wrote down, especially for our no, this is for everybody, right? Comparison leads to destruction, right? We live in a social media world where everything we see, that something that we're missing, right? We're glorifying something that we see every day on our phones. And every time you see something else that you don't have, it reminds you of you're missing something, and it does something to you emotionally, mentally. So I usually tell my students, never compare yourself. You are who you are, regardless of who defines you, what the system says you are. So that's one short point. Comparison leads to destruction. The dollar bill. When you crumble a dollar bill, when you step on it, when you rip it, it's still a dollar bill. So all of you who feel like, I'm nothing, I'll never amount to anything, you have value just because you were created. Just because you are here on earth, you have value. Regardless if you get hurt, regardless if you're in a wheelchair, you have value just because of who you are and who you are to the world. And my last point was the self-worth or the self-value. I use this analogy all the time, the thermostat versus the thermometer, right? And we all probably have heard this. The thermostat changes the environment. The thermostat changes, it may interpret the temperature, but it can change, right? That's a big thing about value, right? Ladies, we don't devalue ourselves or lower our standards to compromise our integrity, right? Men, we know who we are. We don't have to drop down our standards or just lay down everything just to be seen, just to be heard. You be who you are, and you raise that standard and let people accept you for what you set, not for you have to fit into a culture, right? Brian Heat, right? Write this down, right? Please, that self-value, you don't have to lay down your standards to compromise your integrity. All right, that's all I got. That's all I got.
Eric, you really make it hard to follow that, man. Oh man, no, definitely great points there, brother. Um, you know, as I was thinking about this, in regards to manhood and masculinity, I think that, self-worth, self-value, and self-care are essential, to the identity of a man, what Juan was saying, but, just to emphasize it, because I think it's just obvious, is that it all starts with yourself. Is the self that you set forth, is the self that you identify, and your value and your worth, and the care is the maintenance of the other two, right? It's like, okay, how am I constantly either maintaining that or uplifting those values and that worth? So look at the care part as the driver to the or as a fuel to the other ones, right? And just so it's interesting because once one of those are lacking, then I really feel like then that's when we say, like, there's a popular phrase like, man, I'm a man of my word, right? And so you can continuously, like, oh, I said something, I'm going to do it. But what happens when you don't do it? Do you question that? Then you question your identity? No. You really just kind of keep everything balanced. And again, the way you keep things balanced is, by continuously allowing others to pour into you, but also for allowing yourself to grow as well within, like, that self. I forgot, somebody said it, but I think Juan talked about it. That emotional hygiene, right? And really just working at that. And sometimes that process is lonely, it's ugly, and it's not necessarily what you see on social media. So and I think that Brian talked about this as well. It's like, when the opportunity for these things for it to happen, don't run away for it because it came in hard work. Because self-care, self-worth, self-value, it's all products of hard work.
Mark, I just when you talked about that process being ugly, I resonated that so much because everyone on this chat that knows me now, I'm confident and happy and I love who I am. But yeah, I look back when I was 18, entering, SUNY Brockport, coming in, I was lost. Like, I was coming in, to college from Oneonta, New York, majority population, white population, where, like, I only really had my family when it came to identification of, my Ethiopian side of my family. And I'm biracial, so I'm Ethiopian and Scottish. So coming in, going into college, okay, where do I belong? Like, with my white friends, I have friends, but sometimes it's kind of confusing because they don't like some of the cultural things I like. Sometimes with, my African American friends or, other backgrounds, like, I get the Drake jokes, the light skin jokes, things happen, you know what I mean? And I'm like 18, like, confused. And I had to figure out who I was as a person. And also playing football, it comes off as a masculine sport. So I'm, a linebacker playing football, kind of like, rah-rah culture, and that's not, even though I love the game, like, I'm a teddy bear, like, naturally. I just, it's kind of opposite of, I even love in football, but opposite culture, and kind of figuring out, kind of sometimes really lost. So the main point I just want to, to show everybody on the chat, and especially for college students and high school students, is find numerous spaces where you can be yourself and be around the people that you feel the most comfortable with. Because sometimes it's not one space. Sometimes it was with my football team. Sometimes I needed my guys. They were my brothers. They were my family, and I needed them. But when it came to certain things that we didn't relate on, you sometimes need something else if you're not on the same level. I knew for myself when I was very lost, I ended up joining an Athletes in Action group. It was a Bible study. And my friend asked me to join. I actually said no the first time. I thought it was stupid because I had misconceptions of religion. I didn't want to do it. I end up joining and end up becoming a part of my family. And I could really seek out my spiritual development and really find the positive, aspects of life and realize, there's a bigger purpose and to always have that motivation, for my development. So sometimes I needed that space. And then when it came to, issues, frustrations, when Brian Heat said earlier, identify your frustrations to find, success in your passion. There were so many things going on that me personally and just things in our world, especially being in college when Eric Gardner incident happened, there were so many things that pissed me off. And there's some of my friends could not relate to what I felt. So I ended up joining the Men of Color Brockport group, seeing an ad, on campus and joining, this group. And those guys are my brothers today. And all the members, they're my family. And we still keep in touch through social media. And I needed them. They needed me. So that's just something, I won't go too long into it, but find numerous spaces where you can be yourself. And if someone, wants to tell you that your way is wrong, no, they're wrong. You go find that space and that time for what you need.
Just want to jump in and drop a quick note because all the good key points were taken already. In terms of self-worth, self-value, self-care, in the context of manhood and masculinity, I think it's encapsulated when talking about imposter syndrome. So first, imposter syndrome is the feeling of not belonging or being good enough for a specific space. So an example would be me feeling like I don't belong on this panel because I can't possibly be good enough to work with these exceptional men. And so imposter syndrome disproportionately affects people of color, and in particular, high-achieving individuals. And as it relates to manhood and masculinity, there's like the societal pressure that suggests imposter syndrome shouldn't be talked about amongst men of color. And I personally experienced this when talking about imposter syndrome as a Black man at Cornell University. And it's like, Tim, you still on that? And for me, I suffer imposter syndrome when publicly speaking. But I had to talk about it and unpack it and work through these things in order to do things like panel discussions or like working with Mark Sanders, I did my first keynote address. So for me, it's pretty much talking about imposter syndrome.
Yeah, thank y'all all. I have the easy job today because I wouldn't want to follow any of y'all. But I do want to highlight something that Juan shared about blueprint, finding that blueprint. And I remember I had in and out of therapy at many times in my life, and I had my first therapist who identified as a man when I was living in Oneonta. And he asked me what was my blueprint for positive or healthy masculinity. And I remember being so proud and happy to say that it was my father. Um, so when I think about this, so I'm going off script because I'm the facilitator. I'm not supposed to answer questions, but I feel so compelled to share a little bit here, and then open it up for Q&A. But when I think about my self-worth, my self-value, my self-respect, my self-care, my self-love, knowing that I have my father's last name and knowing that I'm happy to be associated with that, and he's no longer here, like that's the ultimate, I think, piece for me. So when I think about, so right before this, I was upset at my dog. Like he was just being a dog, doing stuff that he does. But within my body was just this tension. But it was coming from a lot of other things happening today, not even related to my dog. And I just had to remember, like, am I doing something that's honorable and positive for my body right now? So just wanted to share that. If it lands on you, take it, reflect on it. But thank you all, and I want to open it up for Q&A. I know the panel, the audience probably has some questions of you all, and if not, I have some more questions I could easily ask the panel. So, if you don't have questions, that is totally okay. But this is a good time now where I don't know if I can facilitate the Q&A, or if Lima, you want to help me out here.
Yeah, Jarvis, you could do it. I know I did see Moran had a question for the
Okay,
men.
cool. Can you let me know? Because I don't have the raised hand up on mine.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'll monitor the chat then. If anyone want to put their names,
Cool.
ask a question, or yeah,
Shout out to Brother Felton on the call.
it's okay.
Hi guys, I'm Meron Cash. Seems like a lot of you guys know each other. I've never been to a webinar or Webex like this, but I love listening to you guys' input. It is incredible. I'm also from Oneonta Job Corps, and I love the discussion about self-worth, self-care, self-love. That's something I'm very interested in, and I talk about it constantly throughout my day. I do have a question for all the men. And this also can go apply to me as well. But within, there's, especially as in right now, I'm including epidemic, and as a color of man, there's so many pressures when it comes to being a man, a boyfriend, a husband, and just in general, when you see walking around and the expectations and the pressure of handling these kind of situations. So how are you guys taking this input? Some might assume you are a drug dealer, some might assume just random situations, and including a color of woman as well. I'm Ethiopian, by the way. When somebody mentioned about Ethiopia, and I got excited, finally somebody said that thing. And so it is completely different seeing that view, and it is different culture here in the US. But with all being said, how are you guys handling these kind of situations, expectations from female, male, just generally people who walk by you guys daily life, or you're trapped in your own house right now, or I don't know what state you guys are in, but where is this taking you guys? And have you guys been all the way down to the point where you just lost it, or you lost the pattern of where you're going, or you still strong, you still keeping up, or you still going? So that's I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my question to all the gentlemen here.
I can start off. Thanks, Moran, for that question. That's an excellent question. Again, being vulnerable and authentic, right? It's certainly a struggle. Just thinking about how life is in the pandemic and before, right? So, as a Black male, sorry if you hear background noise. People just walked into my building. Sorry, but as a Black male, right? You think about the grocery store, anywhere where you do retail shopping. You already know all eyes are going to be on you. You might be followed, you might be judged, so on and so forth. Let's enter the pandemic. Now you have a mask on, right? What are people thinking about you? Pre-pandemic, they bag your groceries for you. Post-pandemic, and because of laws, it was on this way anyway, you're bringing your bags, right? You know that people are going to think, is everything in that bag something that they paid for, so on and so forth. But the way that I combat that, or something that has reinserted itself into my life, is the idea of Black boy joy, right? And I like describing it as the defiant act of Black boy joy. And I use the word defiant on purpose. Black boy joy or Black girl magic, right? With self-care, self-worth, and self-value, all those things, society is made to break that down. If you're a student walking around on campus, your self-value, I deserve to be here, someone can say, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Or you must be first gen, right? Your self-worth, I'm here because I'm on an academic scholarship. Society can say, hey, you're here because you're on the basketball team, right? Self-care can say, I want to be vulnerable, but then society pushes back and just says, no, why? Like, stop being a punk, whatever it may be. But in remembering Black boy joy and remembering that I am somebody, right? And remembering that I am worth everything that I've invested my time into is something that has certainly helped me. Something that has been ringing in my mind a little bit is this idea of, especially as it relates to self-value and self-worth, is writing down the idea or concept of writing down your self-value and your self-worth in cement. And then your self-care and your goals can be written in sand. Now, the reason why your self-care isn't written in cement is because as you learn and as you grow, that self-care routine should continuously grow, whether it's journaling, whether it's music, whatever it is, that should always change. That self-value and worth, yes, it could change, but essentially that's your core. That's what built you up, right? And so in evaluating that for myself and for remembering that for myself, that's my way of exuding Black boy joy. That's my way of navigating this terrain, just to say, you know what? Think of what you will, but I know that no matter what, I'm going to be successful. No matter what, I'm going to put my best foot forward. And no matter what, I know that I matter, and every single person who looks like me matters.
Thank you. Thank you. That's deep.
Can I just have some people write this in the chat box? I am Brian Heat Jr. First thing, right? Don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. That's one thing I teach my students every day. You see a gang fight, you see someone doing drugs. Okay, you see it. That's the problem. Now go be a part of the solution. Create new programs for your faculty. Create something. Do something that's going to shine light in the darkness, right? Be a part of don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. So as a Black male, I see all the negativity. I see all the things that can keep me down. But here's the thing. You can keep me down. I'm a seed. Okay, I hope y'all all can catch that. A seed needs to be planted. Once you keep burying me in the ground, I hope y'all can catch this. Seeds will grow. Seeds have to go through the germination stage. So the more you bury me, I have brothers here who are watering my seed. Brother, you are somebody. You have value. You have self-worth. Any person here, any person who puts you down, they don't know you're a seed. They don't know that every time they throw negative words at you, it's actually fuel to the flame. It's fuel, right? And if you allow it to, it will be water to the flame, right? It's all about perspective. Will what they say, will what they do. I'm a Black male in a dominant, I don't want to say culture, right? I'm using it as fuel to my flame. Every time somebody says I can't do something, Tim, that's my opportunity. That's when I say, yo, put my Black Panther cape on. I'm out of here. I'm putting the fangs on my hand, right? That's my opportunity to be me, right? That adds to the strength, the courage that I need. My second point was maximize the moment, right? I'm a seed. What you're doing, you don't know, but you're watering what somebody else planted. So keep throwing negative comments and social media bashing young men, Black Lives Matter, all these negative thoughts. Listen, I'm going to maximize the moment so I can help somebody else. Lastly, let my character speak for itself. Every Black man in this room, we've been labeled, we've been stereotyped, but at the end of the day, right is right, wrong is wrong. Character, right? Loving, kind, gracious, giving. We all have a platform. Every person in this room, every person on this Webex call, we all have a platform. Your relationships, your sons, daughters, girlfriends, whoever it is, your campus. That's your platform to shine. You don't have to be on this big stage. You don't need a million followers. The people who are in front of you, that's who really matter. That's who you serve. That's who you serve. At the end of the day, what people say, I'm a Black man, I am somebody, all right? I have worth, I have value. But if you don't say that to yourself every day, you're going to believe what they say about you. You're going to start to, like Brian and Juan said, taking those words and they become your words, right? You start to believe what they say. No, those words don't matter. I believe in who I am, but be grounded in those words and maximize. Don't be a part of the problem, and then let my character speak for itself. Yo, let's get this. Let's get this. Mark, how we always do. We stand together as a people. And I think once division comes, family, that's when we got to come together as unity. That's our opportunity, right? That's what we're doing right now. Come together as a unity, as a people, no matter color, gender, sexuality. We come together in love, and we sharpen. Iron sharpens iron. That's what I believe. All right.
I'm executive privilege. You don't follow that. Just let that manifest and breathe a little bit. Just let it breathe. Just let that moment have its moment. Nothing else needs to follow after that.
I would just like to say he summoned Brian Heat.
No,
I had some of the Brian Heat juice. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just messing around. But go ahead. I'm not gonna try to silence somebody. So actually, just keep it going. I know y'all got something else to say.
going off of what Eric was saying. There's this quote. I love quotes as well. There's this quote that says, "They thought they buried us. They didn't know we were seeds." Right? That's a Mexican proverb, which remind me exactly what you were talking about there. And this another quote that I love it. I say all the time is, "Character shines in the dark." You know, character always shines in the dark. Everybody's going to be good on a good day. A bad team is good on a good day, right? But when your character shines through when you have this negativity come your way and you have that steadfast pillar of faith and knowing and capital T truth. And that's when you really shine, right? I want people in my tribe and people that ride with me in when I look at how people move and how their body moves and how they really vibe in when things don't go their way, when things are negative. And that's when your true character really does shine, because you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training, right? And if we don't train ourselves to really have that love and that power within us, when shit hits the fan, and it will, it's not an if, it's when, yet that true character, that true shining is going to come through. So be that light even when it's dark around you.
Any other audience? Go ahead.
My bad. So I'm thinking about self-care practices. And so my thing is cope with intentionality. So I'm thinking about when COVID first happened and we socially distanced. And during that time, I was dedicated to picking up new skills. I'm like, if I'm home, I need to learn something, right? So I'm like, if I'm stuck in the house and I'm about to be the blackball Gordon Ramsay, you know, I'm gonna learn how to cook some new dishes. And so I think that's a healthy mechanism, right? Until you start eating too much. And now your favorite shirt is a little tight now. You know, the sweaters are a little tight. And so in the context of being a man of color with a family history of blood pressure, that could be a serious issue. I also wanted to learn how to make like fancy drinks and new cocktails. And so now you're starting to drink a little too much. And with a family history of alcoholism, that could be a serious issue. So going back to coping with intentionality, like maybe I should have cooked with a little bit of asparagus, emphasize putting some green food in what I'm trying to make. And in relation to drinking, maybe I should only have to drink during like special occasions or something. But I'm thinking like in those tough times, like I really had to sit down and like, okay, how am I going to cope? How am I going to go about this? Because, you know, cooking seems like something healthy. It seems like it could be something healthy, but if done improperly or without intentionality, you could jack yourself up. Sorry, I just wanted to share that piece.
Any other audience questions?
Hi, everyone. This is Maylin. Great panel. I can talk to everyone all day. I'm here. I work with Mark, because I'm really excited to see him on panel as well as everyone else. As you know, with me, like I always, you know, like use the plane analogy. Like if the plane is falling, you put oxygen on you first before you put it on somebody else. And I think we live in a culture, especially, you know, for Latino or Black, you know, men and women, to give back, right, to our families and just keep pouring into others and not really pour back into ourselves. You know, and Mark has been really good in showing me as a woman of color to keep giving and giving and giving. And sometimes you don't have boundaries with family or loved ones, right? Because you're the person you go to for that. So I would love to hear what the panel has to say as strategies to build healthy boundaries with family, with colleagues, with friends, because I think it's an ongoing struggle to do that in a peaceful and healthy way, because others don't know how to do that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maylin. Let's throw some virtual love in the chat on your screen for the amazing panelists. And I'm gonna kick it over to Riley from Move to go ahead and close the panel out and introduce or reintroduce Brian to close us out.
Thanks, Jarvis. So first off, I just want to say thank you, Jarvis, and thank you to our panelists, Tim, Brandon, Bryce, Eric, and Mark. Thank you guys, and even Juan for that matter. That was really genuine and really powerful.